Starmer has told workers in Liverpool that decarbonisation doesn't mean deindustrialisation, as the Prime Minister outlined plans to invest £22 billion in carbon capture projects on Merseyside and Teesside. Well, joining me now is Alex Clarke, co-founder of Chief Executive of Black Bull Biochar, a carbon removal company. Good afternoon to you. What do you make of these plans?
Good afternoon. Yes, this is a big moment, actually, in the green infrastructure industry. This has been an area that's been looked at for decades by different governments, and finally it's good to see a flag in the sand moment of some significant funding going towards carbon capture and storage.
There's a lot of criticism around this project, namely saying that it doesn't actually facilitate the entire removal of oil and gas production, that it actually might encourage people to continue using fossil fuels because they'll have the backup of saying, well, it's OK now because the government's capturing all the carbon that we emit.
Yeah, and it needs to be framed in the appropriate context because you're right, it does mean the continuation of the use of fossil fuels. But as long as that it still results in full carbon capture and storage and us meeting net zero, that still means it makes sense for the planet. I think the risk here for the government, though, is they just focus on this area. This is, yes, it's a big moment. Yes, it's good to see that confidence given to investors in the green infrastructure industry. But it's not just going to be carbon capture and storage. There's lots of other technologies that the government's going to have to follow up with and actually encourage investment in that space. We've seen Sir Keir Starmer say more investments like this are to come, but it remains to be seen exactly what that is. And it's also worth mentioning that though this sounds enormous with 22 billion, it is spread over 25 years. So it's devil's in the detail there. Actually, that's less than £1 billion a year. And so it remains to be seen exactly how much impact this will have, although it's definitely a good signal.
Is it really enough, £1 billion a year? Like you say, it sounds like a lot of money, but this is a huge task at hand.
The short answer is no, it's not. However, it's never enough. I've never seen a single government announcement from any government be usually enough for the scale of the problem we're facing in terms of climate change and how to store CO2. What is good, though, is that we have an amazing landscape here in the UK with the North Sea, with Merseyside, as well as places you can store CO2 in. It's an incredibly logical place for us to be doing this kind of activity. The challenge around it is it's not been very economic to date. So I think what's going to be difficult is seeing whether this is actually the proof's in the pudding of these kind of investments. And I personally hope to see the government broaden their approach and look not just at carbon capture and storage, but look at other technologies such as carbon dioxide removal technologies, where you can do much more economic approaches to removing CO2 from the atmosphere.
And Alex, tell me a bit about what you do and how it works.
Sure. So I'm co-founder and CEO of Black Bull Biochar. We are a carbon removals technology. We don't currently sit in this new announcement by the government in terms of funding. But what we do is we take CO2 up from the atmosphere, store it in a specialized form of charcoal called biochar. We can then apply that to soils as a sort of a pseudo fertilizer on land, and also store carbon into the soil for thousands of years. We can do effectively carbon capture and storage for a fraction of the price.
We are going to have to leave it there. Thanks very much indeed for joining us here on Sky News.
Thank you for having me.
You're watching